Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Marketing Live for Thursday, November 29th, 2018. I'm Rob Zinkin. I serve as Associate Vice President for Marketing at Indiana University, and I am very much looking forward to today's discussion and topic about the amazing story of Sweet Briar College and its brand strategy, and how the college was able to change the narrative from the school that nearly closed in 2015 to one of a confident and thriving institution. First, though, a reminder that Marketing Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network. Our episodes offer you direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. You can be a part of our live broadcast today. Just use the Higher Ed Live hashtag on Twitter. Chime in with a question or comment. We always welcome those and happy to pass those along to our guests. All episodes are free and easy to access in the video archives at higheredlive.com, or you can take Higher Ed Live with you on the go by subscribing to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So much great content available across the network, so hope you take full advantage. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a digital-first agency committed to tailored solutions that drive real results. Are you a marketing and communications professional who works on your institution's website? M. Stoner's Advanced Marketing for Higher Education online conference has something for everyone, especially those of you, and I'm sure many of you, who wear several hats. You'll walk away with better understanding your key audiences, how to create exceptional content with better planning, how to move your website from a capital project to an ongoing process, and much more. We'll be tweeting out a link shortly to learn more about the online conference, and it's going to be a terrific conference the week of December 10th, and I am excited to moderate a panel on making the case for website resources. Well, today is all about Sweet Briar College, and I am delighted to welcome Melissa Richards, who is Vice President for Communications and Enrollment Management at Sweet Briar. Melissa has an impressive marketing leadership background across 2.5 decades, covering all facets of marketing, brand strategy, communications. She has also worked at St. Lawrence University and Virginia Tech, and brings experience from outside higher ed with senior roles for global technology corporations. Melissa, great to see you, and thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we met in person at the AMA Symposium for the Marketing of Higher Education earlier this month, where you gave a presentation on this topic, sharing the Sweet Briar story, and had a packed crowd, lots of interest in that. So first, want to start there and hear a little bit about your AMA experience, and if you had any specific takeaways from AMA Higher Ed, or what you left the conference with on your mind.
Sure. You know, the American Marketing Association Higher Ed Symposium is one of my favorite events of the year. That was my 4th or possibly 5th time speaking at the conference. But it's the one conference where when I'm there, I feel like I'm with my people. It's really marketing centric, and the curators do a fantastic job of selecting a diverse group of topics that are both strategic as well as tactical, and representing a variety of sized institutions and public versus private, et cetera. So it's one thing to go to a marketing conference that is all in marketing, but because this is higher ed specific and it has the biggest draw of these types of conferences of the year, it's a must.
Indeed, indeed. And we'll be planning for that before long for AMA 2019. So it won't be too long, and it'll be time to be thinking ahead for that. Well, before we get into the Sweet Briar story, I also want to ask a little bit more about your background so that listeners can get to know you a bit better beyond the very brief bio that I had mentioned. So, Melissa, is there something from your career path, and whether that could be a specific experience or a person or something like that, that has shaped your professional journey and perhaps left a lasting impact on the philosophy you have or the approach that you have to your work?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll start with a little bit about me personally. I have a variety of interests outside of my professional life, but they really do fuel what I do every day, and my love and passion for marketing and higher education. I'm a busy mom. I have one of my daughters is special needs. She has a rare genetic disorder. So outside of work, I am a strong advocate for special needs education as well as genetic and medical research. I've served on a number of boards, including the Girl Scouts. Most recently, I helped start a children's museum back in Blacksburg when I worked at Virginia Tech. And, you know, all of that really keeps me going and I'm a people person. I'm very extroverted. I like to network in various circles. And again, that it sounds really busy, but it keeps my energy going for the heavy lifting that I have to do sometimes in my professional career. And professionally, you know, I say to my team, I want them to wake up every morning excited about what they're going to do today and leave at the end of the day wanting to come back tomorrow and bring their energy and bring their passions. And I apply that to myself personally as well. One of my early mentors in higher education said that as higher education communicators, it's our job to make the institution as human as possible. And I think about that a lot in my job. And I also love that here at Sweet Briar, I wake up every morning knowing that everything I do today matters. And that's really important to me in my career search. I've been in higher education the last 10 years and spent the first 16 years of my career in corporate. So
That's
that
fantastic.
combination of skills also really, I feel, prepared me for where I am today, because in my mind, marketing and sales in the corporate world have always gone together. They work together hand in hand. And so even though in higher education, marketing and communications coupled with enrollment is still fairly new and still not happening at some institutions, for me, it's a no-brainer because that's my background.
Yeah. Great perspective to have and to frame this conversation, and certainly want to learn more about the role that you have in that combination and your structure and portfolio. Well, let's start with the beginnings of this story and evolution. And as I said, it's certainly, your institution story is an amazing one. So I imagine I could just sit back and ask you one question to just tell us all about it and sit back and listen. So let's start with the background, perhaps for those who may not have the full context, and set the stage for us.
Right. Well, even before we had a brand refresh, you know, Sweet Briar had one of the most compelling brand stories in the country, which is one of the reasons I'm here. I was so attracted to that. But for those who may not have known, I'm sure you at least were a little bit aware, there was an attempted closure of Sweet Briar College back in 2015. And an amazing group of alumni rose up and went to court to fight for the rights to take back the keys to the college, if you will. They won the court battle. They raised an incredible $44 million in 2 years to get the school back on its feet. But, you know, that's a hard hit when a school nearly closes. Even if it doesn't close, there are a lot of implications. And also it's a bit of a long tail. It takes some time for the brand effects to take place, because you get this momentum in the beginning that everyone's rallying behind the school. But then you really have to prove that you're sustainable, you're viable, you're relevant, all those things in order to, you know, increase enrollment, which is the ultimate goal for any school. In 2000, so the alumni took back the college. They installed a new interim president who was here for 2 years and really helped get the school back together, brought the faculty back, got as many students back as they could, hired staff, and got the structure and the infrastructure back in place. And then in 2017, President Meredith Wu was hired as the 13th president of Sweet Briar College. So she's been here a year and a half now. And she came in with a strong vision, really rallied the faculty and alumni around excellence, relevance, and affordability. Those were really the 3 areas that we set out that we, Sweet Briar could be. And she came in, you know, and really put a stake in the ground and said, people are wrong. Those people who thought that there's no place in today's society for a women's college, they are wrong. Yes, it's hard work, but we have what it takes. And we're gonna rise to the top. And that's where it all started. We knew that there was an opportunity then to remake the brand, to refresh the brand, really understand what the strengths of our college offerings are, understand what we've done for over a century and delivering excellent education, and really put our resources behind those things in order to be relevant for today's woman.
Well, I love how you talk about starting with an understanding. And certainly any sound brand strategy process should begin with research. So
Mhm.
how did you gain that understanding? Give us a sense of what the research entailed, who was involved, and what truths about the college were uncovered, and then how did that inform the work that came next?
Right. So um, the college partnered with Lippman Hearn out of Chicago to for the initial brand research, and there was really extensive work done that I was really impressed by as I started digging into the details. I came on board right as the concepts were being presented, so it was then my job to take those things and implement them. But they put together a number of focus groups with different constituents, including faculty, staff, current students, current parents, even some prospective students, staff, and donors. And then they did a very extensive survey with the Sweet Briar College alumni and had a great response rate that really uncovered all the attributes that they used to put the brand platform together. And it was really important that the messaging be really focus on those attributes that came forward, like that Sweet Briar women are life ready, they are confident, they speak up for themselves, and that Sweet Briar is a place where you can discover who you are, and it will bring out the best in you. And that Sweet Briar, no matter how small, the college has always been a small college and always will be, but can provide the resources that young women need to go out and be successful leaders in the world. So the brand story, that messaging platform had to exude those attributes. And so what was unique about Sweet Briar, what is uniquely about Sweet Briar, is that there's a mix of both support and independence. And so it was really important that shone through. And there had to be a sense of collective identity, because community is really important. That was evident by the alumni who came together and rallied with the students and faculty to save the college, and a really strong sense of pride. And then also that Sweet Briar women are multidimensional, and that the definition of a modern woman and a modern Sweet Briar woman is multidimensional and multifaceted. And so we set out to develop a brand platform that exuded all of those attributes. And of course, it had to address the academic experience, the community feel, the campus culture, and all the outcomes. And all of those were really important. And so they came up with a brand narrative around the themes confidence, courage, and grit. And those were the, sort of the top level themes that all of those attributes rolled up under. And then there was really strong supporting messages and proof points to support them. And then out of all of that came the campaign theme, "This is Fierce." And of course, that's a campaign theme that came from the brand, which is, it's important that a brand is authentic and it's timeless. And then a campaign theme is going to be a representative of that, but may change throughout time.
Excellent. Thanks for the full background on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to ask, because you mentioned the ultimate goal of enrollment, and as you went down this process, research, and as you just talked through the brand platform, how did you intend for the brand platform to flex for the purpose potentially of fundraising and other objectives that the college has?
Yeah, so the goals were, I won't say they were simple, because they were not simple. They were very complex and by many definitions, heavy lifts, but they were very clear. The goals were that we had to change the narrative first and foremost. It was so important that that we're no longer known as the school that almost closed. The school, we had a real problem on the enrollment side, that we had guidance counselors and school counselors, even in our own state, who felt that who didn't really understand that the college didn't actually close. So we had to change the narrative, both in our own backyard as well as nationally and internationally. And then we had to make achieve expansive reach of that again, not only in our own backyard, but nationally and internationally as well. And as part of that, we had to rebuild the confidence in all of those constituencies. All of that leading to enrollment. So those were the top level goals from the outset. And we knew that in order to achieve them, the brand had to fuel it. We had to have a brand narrative and then compelling creative that would fuel those, the tactics in order to achieve those goals.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the compelling creative. Tell us a little bit about that part of the process, what that looked like, and bringing the brand platform to life, and what the creative manifestation, how that process came about.
Sure. So again, this is where we had the great partnership with Lippmann Hearn. They came up with some fantastic creative concepts, and then we brought them in-house to implement them. I used this analogy in my presentation at AMA, and I think it works really well. It's a little bit like going to the hair salon. When you get creative concepts, right? My hairdresser would say to me that he makes me look like my best self. And I like it. I like what he does with my hair, but I also want to go home and wash it and style it myself and make it my own, because I'm going to be fixing it every day myself. So it's kind of a silly analogy, but I think brand, when you're working with an external partner, they bring you your best self. And then you really have to take it inside. It has to be malleable. You have to make it your own, because what's really, really important about a compelling brand is that your constituencies internalize it, especially your internal audiences. So in order to internalize it, you have to make it your own a little bit, and you have to change it up. But what was really important about our creative was, again, showing Sweet Briar women as multifaceted and showing them as sophisticated leaders, but also who have great senses of humor. They have a variety of interests. They take themselves seriously, and they want to change the world and make the world a better place. But at the same time, they really have fun together. They come together as a community. We have incredible attendance at our reunion events, even just everyday events that we have here on campus that are traditions. Alumni show up. They even drive from far away or fly in to be here because they have that great sense of community. So the creative had to show that. And we also had to refresh everything. So it was a really big undertaking to accomplish in just a couple of months to be ready for the recruitment season. Because again, all of this wasn't just to put out a pretty advertisement or put out, a fancy brochure. We had to redo everything to fuel our recruitment season. But we wanted to articulate that sense of the multifaceted Sweet Briar woman and the sense of community. And also we used the theme fierce, and we wanted to really show how fierce is multifaceted as well. It's not about being aggressive or assertive all the time. Fierce is about, finding your courage and your confidence and your strength and your willpower and digging down deep to make things happen no matter what it is.
And with an aggressive timeline aimed at the beginning of recruitment season, what was the overall timeline for this, going back to the beginning of the research process to the point when you actually launched?
It's pretty incredible when you think about it. When I reflect on it, I kind of find it hard to believe that we accomplished it so quickly and did it so well. The research was done in about 14 months. And then the creative was put together in about 2 months. And I joined Sweet Briar in July of 2017. So again, that was when the creative concepts and the messaging concepts were being handed over. So from July until the students showed up in August, really to get our plan in order. We refreshed the website. We started refreshing the materials. We put together a brand launch party around one of our big traditions is Founders Day that takes place in September. And oh, by the way, we also had to have a presidential inauguration on top of all of those other things. So luckily that ended up being the same weekend as Founders Day weekend. And that was the perfect time for the brand launch. So even though, and also it's important to know that in that time period from July until September, that 2-month window, we also did some internal testing. So we put together some focus groups of students and faculty and alumni to help look at the messages and make sure that they were authentic and compelling. And of course, you always have to massage them a little bit as you go through that process. And then we started, cranking out all the creative materials. But the brand launch party was a great idea. There's also a tradition at the Founders Day weekend. There's a formal ceremony with regalia. All the faculty participate. The president speaks. The dean speaks. There's some awards. Scholarships that are acknowledged for students, and there's always been an ice cream party at the end of that ceremony, hosted by the dean's office. So we partnered with the dean's office to have a photo booth and a lot of our new brand materials out on display, and some promotional items that we gave away, and got the students and faculty and staff really excited about the new brand.
Mm-hmm. Wow, well, a brand launch is certainly all-encompassing, and I can't even imagine throwing an inauguration into the mix. Wow. So brand has launched, and certainly that's a huge, huge milestone, but at the same time, the work is just beginning when you get to that point. So how have you been able to keep that momentum going?
Well, we went back to our goals, because it's not just about putting the brand out there, right? It has to roll up to your top level goals. And so we started infusing all of our recruitment activities with the brand. In addition to refreshing the materials, we have hundreds of alumni all over the country who help us with recruitment and doing things like going out to college fairs, for example. So we engaged them in different regions to deliver brand training so that they knew the right talking points around excellence, relevance, and affordability, and also about the theme, "This is Fierce," and what that means, and all of those supporting messages. And we started refreshing all of our profiles, all of our materials. As I said, we redesigned the website, and then we launched a campaign, because again, going back to that goal of changing the narrative and knowing how important it was right in our own backyard, we launched a major advertising campaign here in Virginia with airport ads. We did radio ads on the NPR affiliates in the state. We did some print ads in lifestyle publications, and we also did some really targeted outreach to guidance counselors and school counselors in Virginia. And then started that campaign in December, and it rolled over into the new year, so the beginning of 2018. And then we also launched a digital campaign that was more of a national campaign, and we partnered again with Lippman Hearn on the execution and the media planning for the digital campaign. And what was really important about that, while all the other advertising that we were doing in Virginia was geared towards influencers, the digital campaign, we really wanted to meet students where they were, prospective students. So we had digital ads on things like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Google AdWords, YouTube, and that was all around generating inquiries. And we had a very successful completion rate with our request for information forms, incredible click-through rates that were higher than the industry average. And it translated into generating a number of applications for us as well. And of course, the end result for us, I know we'll get to that later, but the end result is that we did, in fact, increase enrollment significantly last year. And we're on our path to doing it again this year.
That's great. That's great. And having a new president, the leadership needed to bring the bold vision and direction for the college. So I want to talk about the leadership, the structure, your portfolio, and what was needed to make all of this happen, and your comparison to sales and marketing with marketing and enrollment, and your background elsewhere. So what was the structure before, and then currently what changes were made, or what have you done also in terms of the supporting pieces to help lead and support where the college needed to go, and have the organizational structure, the talent, people in the right places and positions to do what needed to be done?
Great. Well, leadership is incredibly important always, but especially in periods of innovation right? And innovation is scary. So you have to have leadership that you can trust in and who are visionary, but also realistic. And I felt that from the very beginning with President Wu, and that's, why I'm here. She recruited me, that my position is a new position, the combination of marketing and enrollment together. It was the first for Sweet Briar to have that combination. And I have admissions, financial aid, a communications team, and I also have the sports information director reports to me. And that was a strategic move and change as well, because the athletic director and I felt that it was really important for the SID to feel like he is a part of the communications team, that because he is one person, there are no assistant SIDs. We wanted him to feel like he was a part of a team of other creative professionals and information specialists. So he's on our team as well. We have meetings. I have altogether, it's about 21 people in those. So we're pretty lean, but I am lucky in that I have some internal resources that are very key, and they were strategic investments for us. So I have an internal video producer as well as an in-house photographer. I have an assistant director who helps with media relations, who's an incredible writer. I have a director of communications who's an incredible writer. And one of the really important reasons I recruited her is because she has a deep background in philanthropy communications. So she is our bridge to alumni relations and development, who we also support. So even though we have communications and enrollment coupled together, and the communications team are first and foremost concentrating on recruitment, we are also a support group, services group for our other key divisions. So we are providing, helping with communications for alumni relations and development, as well as academics and student life. Let's see, on the admissions side, I think it's really important to point out one thing that's incredibly successful for us is that in addition to the admissions counselors who have geographical territories, they also have what we call recruitment segments or marketing segments. So for example, equestrian is really important at Sweet Briar, and we have, we're the only small school, the only Division III school with an NCEA team, which is the top level equestrian competition team in the country. And so we have one of our admissions counselor, even though she has a geographic region, she also nurtures our inquiries and prospects who have expressed interest in riding horses here at Sweet Briar, regardless of where those students live. So each counselor has a segment like that, STEM and other interests, arts and other interests. So that's really important. And then the communications team partner in helping create those highly segmented communications for those audiences, email communications, brochures, other direct mail campaigns, etc. And then also on the financial, I have financial aid, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell for our group. As I said, it's pretty lean, but I feel confident that we've made investments in the right resources.
Yeah, lean but integrated. I think the integration there is a powerful message and takeaway for anyone, and whether you're big or small, to find the areas where you can integrate across the campus and institution. So that's a great lesson for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. We spend a lot of time talking about the recruitment funnel, and that's something that admissions spends a lot of time thinking about, but it's not every organization that aligns all of their marketing activities around that funnel. And I'm a firm believer that an integrated marketing communications model should be specific to the stage. So the communications that we're creating for admissions prospects are very different than the communications that we're creating for those who have applied and been accepted and are still trying to make a decision whether to enroll.
So, speaking of enrollment, and you alluded to the enrollment successes, tell us all about the results of the brand strategy process and in hitting your goals and how you're measuring the success and impact of your work.
Yeah, so it worked. We were able to, going back to those 4 goals, we were able to achieve exactly what we set out to do. We changed the narrative. We had incredible success not only in the media, but in the anecdotal evidence of going from a situation where guidance counselors were discouraging students to apply to Sweet Briar. They're now encouraging them. They're calling us and saying, can we bring groups of students to visit campus? They're attending open houses, and we're seeing those numbers go up. I'm digging for some notes here. We changed. We look at a number of different indicators from analytics perspective. So I sit down with my team on a quarterly basis on the communication side to look at web traffic, to look at our media presence and media successes. And all of those numbers went up. We went from an average during the height of our campaigns, and it's still happening with the campaigns that we're running this fall. We went from an average of 600 website visitors a day to 16,000 website visitors a day. And we look at the analytics carefully to see how we can move the needle. And on the enrollment side, we're looking at it, on a daily basis. We're looking at the number of inquiries and applications and the admits that we're moving through the funnel. Last year, we increased enrollment by 42%, which was incredible, for 1 year. Everything that we rolled out in that 1 year, and we're able to accomplish those numbers. And as I said, Sweet Briar has always been a small college and will continue to be a small college, but we are, on our path to growing enrollment. And, at the height, Sweet Briar is probably, going to be 800 students. And in fact, historically, it's only been, around 750, 760 students. I saw a statistic yesterday that said, I think it's half of the colleges, private colleges in America have fewer than 1,000 students.
And then looking ahead, Melissa, what's next? What's next for Sweet Briar College, and how do you plan the continued evolution of the brand and continuing to drive those key results that you're going after, and perhaps even with your team? And how do you want to continue this momentum and this overall path for the college?
Yeah, so we're continuing to invest in advertising campaigns because, again, that is really important for us to keep raising the awareness and keep the focus on those 3 things that I mentioned earlier: excellence, relevance, and affordability. The affordability piece is that Sweet Briar reduced its tuition. And we did that strategically, not just because we wanted to be, slash our prices to get more students, but we took a look at the landscape and we said, we're going to take this moment to not only change our brand, but we want to change our competitive landscape. Traditionally, Sweet Briar had more students. The majority of students were out-of-state students, but over the recent years, the majority of students, at least 50%, are from Virginia, our very own state, the Commonwealth of Virginia, where there are many strong schools and very strong public schools. So we decided that we wanted to be more competitive with the public schools in our own state and compete for the smart students who should stay in Virginia, and particularly young women who aren't going to be successful at really large public schools and in really large classrooms. Sweet Briar is one of only 2 women's colleges in the country with an accredited engineering program. So that's one of our key focuses, is finding those students who are not going to be successful in the classroom with 700 engineering students, the majority of whom are male students. And some of those female students drop out because they feel like it's not a good learning environment for them. And we believe that that's part of the problem. the problem that's fueling the need or the lack of women in the STEM workplace. And so Sweet Briar is a great place for women to come and study engineering, for example. Of course, arts and humanities as well. You know, we rolled out a women's leadership curriculum. So that's the other part of relevance and excellence is we recognize that Sweet Briar has been graduating women leaders for over a century. So we really set out to do that well. We threw general education out the window and developed our own core curriculum that spans all of those disciplines that a gen ed curriculum traditionally covers, but they have a focus on women's leadership specifically. So it's different, it's unique, it's interesting. President Wu came when she got here, she said, I want to do away with barriers to getting students eager to learn. And general education for some places, for some schools, is a barrier. The students feel like it's a burden that they have to just check off before they can get to the classes that they really love taking. And so this was our way of making ourselves relevant and creating this modern curriculum. So we'll continue to market that. And I think, the This Is Fierce campaign theme itself is still very relevant. We're changing creative to reflect the different facets and taking it to new levels. We really want to uncover and present unique student stories because, again, at Sweet Briar being a small place, you can be an engineer and an athlete. You can be a historian and a musician. You can combine a lot of your interests and passions, and you can even create your own major to go out and be relevant, set yourself apart in the workplace when you graduate. So we're really going to focus on telling those stories, and because we believe that it's those experiences at Sweet Briar shape our graduates to go out and be successful leaders in the world.
Well, I can see why you're so passionate. Exciting time to be there and to be a part of something like that, which that sort of turning point transformation, you don't get those opportunities too often over the course of one's career. So
exactly.
Even as you reflect on that, have you had any lessons learned, even that maybe leadership wise or specific to marketing or anything that you think you'll carry forward with you?
I think I said earlier that, innovation can be scary, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's fast work. You have to take a leap. And that's why it's so important to know your brand. And because everything that you're going to do, the changes that you're going to make have to be based on what's true, and what's authentic. And it is, there were times, you get tired. Your team gets tired. And as a leader, that can be tough because you have to be the one who's on all the time and feeling confident and being positive, even when sometimes, you wake up tired too. I had one of the things that I said a lot last year is that we're in the messy middle, and getting through the messy middle is scary. It's tough. But as soon as we get through the messy middle, we're going to have the proof points that we need to show that we were doing the right things. And we have those now. So we have not only have we built confidence externally, but we have some more internal confidence. And there's still a lot of work to be done. Being relevant means that you're constantly innovating. And that's difficult, or people forget that sometimes, that it's never done. And when we think about creative projects, right, the brand is never done. A website is never done. You're always refreshing it, and you're following it and re-energizing it. So that's true of institutional growth as well.
Yes, and I'm sure a lot of people are shaking their head in an animated way hearing you say that. Well, Melissa, thanks so much for sharing everything today. Congratulations on the outstanding work and all the success that you and the Sweet Briar community have had.
Well, thank you so much. It's, as you can tell, I get really excited talking about it. It's an amazing place to be. And I'll end with one of the things that I said from the beginning. I love waking up every morning knowing that everything I do today matters.
That's great. Thanks again to Melissa Richards, Sweet Briar College Vice President for Communications and Enrollment Management. And as always, a big thank you to M. Stoner, which produces Higher Ed Live and makes these episodes possible. I'm Rob Zinkin. Thanks again for tuning in to Marketing Live on the Higher Ed Live Network.